1963, a year of significance. A handful of visionary Ghanaian chartered bankers returned from their studies in the United Kingdom. They started as a close-knit group reminiscing about their UK journeys and sharing work experiences. But this was not just about memories. The ambition grew. And they started organizing preparatory classes in Accra for upcoming bankers with an unquenchable thirst for growth. In 1963, they formalized their tie with the Institute of Bankers, England and Wales. The pioneer leaders, Mr. C.P. Johnson, Mr. J.H. Ellis, and later Mr. J.S. Addo, under their leadership, the institute found its roots and flourished. But they faced challenges. Balancing rigorous banking education with work wasn't easy, yet their determination was unwavering. Over the years, the institute's presence was undeniable. Their annual Bankers' Dinner became landmarks, platforms for central bank governors to share visions for the year ahead. From the first executive secretary, Mr. Kofi Atta-Bronya, to the chief executives, the journey has been nothing short of inspiring. 1978, a significant year. The institute took a giant leap and registered under Professional Bodies Decree of 1973. That same year, localizing examinations became a reality. Despite challenges, the institute persevered. From power outages during exams to relocation, they faced it all. 2016 saw a remarkable change. Bishop Mrs. Patricia Sapo was elected the first female president, leading the institute to even greater heights. And finally, 2019, the Chartered Institute of Bankers Act was assented, marking another major milestone. Through decades of passion, perseverance, and unwavering commitment, the Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana stands tall today, honoring the past, celebrating the present, and looking forward to an even brighter future.
History is said to be the record of very important events that have taken place in the past. You've heard about our journey to 60. It's been full of sacrifices, but of course achievements. And we've been very consistent, putting ethics and professionalism at the heart and core of what we do. We are even more excited about the future. The next 60 years will be very defining. For us, that means being the talent engine and thought leaders for the industry, supporting the banking sector and the entire financial services ecosystem in this country and beyond. We're calling on all of you, our key stakeholders, to walk this journey with us into the future.
aspects of society. The theme for today's event is redefining professionalism in banking through ethics. For me, this theme is very apt, considering the challenges and development in the banking and business sphere today. Our business as bankers hinges on the trust of our society, and thus we are challenged to be professional as bankers and exercise a duty of care in all our dealings. This exercise of a duty of care should include obtaining the requisite qualifications to do our work competently, in the same way that we expect to be treated by qualified doctors when we visit the hospital. Our customers expect that their financial health is managed by qualified chartered bankers. I therefore call on all stakeholders in the banking industry to embrace the charge to ensure that bank officials gain the ACIB qualification. Being ethical bankers engenders us to be conscious about how our banking practices affect society at large. It challenges us to let our actions be guided by good values, which are customer-centric, and protect our nation's resources for the good of future generations. The question I want all of us to ask ourselves today is, what does the theme redefining professionalism in banking through ethics mean to us? We should all leave here with a clear understanding and a conviction to go out there as ambassadors of this theme. There will also be a very important activity during today's event, which is the launch of the new ACIB curriculum and ethics certification program. I am quite excited about this. I know you'll be excited as well. At this juncture, I would like to call on Mr. John Iwa to give us his address. No, I would rather call on the president of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, Mr. Benjamin Amenume, to give us his welcome address and introduce the chairperson for the day. Let us welcome him with a round of applause.
The governor of Bank of Ghana, represented by Dr. Bernard Otabel, Director Ethics and Internal Investigation, Bank of Ghana, founder and president of Ashesi University, president, the CEO of Ghana Association of Banks, distinguished panel members, managing directors of banks and financial institutions, past presidents of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, Ghana, the CEO of FCIB, Ghana, members of the Governing Council, fellows, associates of the Institute, new inductees, graduates and students, representatives from academia, distinguished speakers, and invited guests, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. We thank God for his mercies and loving kindness. It is my great delight, and on behalf of the Governing Council, to welcome you to the 27th National Banking and Ethics Conference of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, Ghana. The theme for our conference is redefining professionalism in banking through ethics. Our industry has witnessed some recent external and internal events which have imparted confidence, from the banking sector cleanup, which was necessary, to the COVID-19 and then the domestic debt exchange program in our industry actually affected the survival and threatened our industry. Mr. Governor, as you may know, some of these events are not within our control, but what is definitely within our control are the people who work in the industry. The 2023 Bank of Ghana fraud report shows some alarming trends. Permit me to highlight just a few. The year 2022 recorded 2,998 attempted fraud cases as compared to 2,347 cases in 2021, representing 27.74% increase. The total loss value recorded in 2022 stood approximately at 56 million Ghana cedis as compared to approximately 61 million Ghana cedis in 2021. In respect of staff involvement, although 2022 has seen a marginal reduction in the percentage of staff to 47%, that still remains a very high percentage. It is in this light that our team redefining professionalism in banking through ethics is appropriate and timely. As an institute, there are a number of things we are doing to upgrade awareness and to restore confidence, which our Chief Executive Officer, the CEO, will share with you during this presentation. This year marks the 60th anniversary of the Institute, and our discussion today will focus on the following. First, the theme for the conference, then building ethical citizens and leaders. The next will be giving voice to value, then responsible banking and sustainability. For our industry to be sustainable, we need trusted bankers or trusted professionals. I mean, trusted bankers. And I am confident that today's conference will provide a clear pathway to a more sustainable industry and a society. Thank you in advance, Mr. Governor, and our guest speaker for honoring our invitation. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take the opportunity to announce that today the Institute is launching two new programs in addition to the Chartered Banker for Executive Leadership, which was launched in September. These are the newly redesigned Chartered Banker Qualification, FCIB, Ethics Certification Program in collaboration with Bank of Ghana. On behalf of the Governing Council of FCIB, the CEO and management of the entire membership of FCIB, Mr. Governor, we thank you for your continued support for the Institute. The Ethics Certification Program being launched today must be a key requirement for the fit and proper assessment for key management roles. The Chartered Banker Qualification, FCIB, must be a requirement for some key positions in banks and financial institutions going forward. We hope these proposals will receive the needed support from you and Bank of Ghana. This will be one of the legacies you and your team will be noted for. Once again, thank you, and let us have a successful conference. Ladies and gentlemen, I will also take the opportunity to introduce the chairperson for today's conference. He did no introduction, though, as we all know him, he is the CEO of the association, Ghana Association of Banks. He has worked in various banks and has been a former colleague and a former boss. He is no mean person than Mr. John Ewa. Thank you, boss.
Thank you. Good morning. The representative of the Governor of Bank of Ghana, Dr. Bernard Utabel, Director, Ethics and Internal Investigation at the bank. Mr. Patakawua, a namesake, the founder and president of Chelsea University, the president of FCIB Ghana, the CEO, council members, managing directors of banks present, and I see my friend from Banking Supervision over there, Mr. Osejesi, a very good partner of banks in the country. The president of our association sends her regards. Unfortunately, she's found herself in Lomé attending an official assignment and has asked me to stand in for her. As the president of CIB has already noted, the theme for this year's conference could not have been more apt and appropriate. And here I'll just give a little example. Earlier this year, somewhere around, I think towards the end of January, after a few rounds of golf, we were at the golf clubhouse when I found myself seated in the midst of some business people. So we got talking, and the issue of corruption some of the problems that corruption is creating for us in the country. Maybe I should have shut up, but I started to speak. And they said, but John, even banks now are also very much corrupt. So this was the person who was seated next to me. Just before I could say, oh, let me clarify, the other four people all zoomed in, and they all had experiences, terrible experiences that they shared, which they had encountered with their dealings or in their dealings with banks in this country. So that is why personally I'm very much comforted that CIB has taken it as a charge to put ethics and professional conduct, good professional conduct at the heart of banking in Ghana and perhaps beyond. If we lose that fight as bankers, we should forget it, because we are in an industry of trust. And when we lose that high ground of people that are trustworthy, then we should know that we are just like any other man on the streets, and the confidence that our customers have in us would gradually wane, and we will lose the businesses that we have. So, as I said, we from the banking system, particularly from the association, we are very excited. Like we are very good at in Ghana, where we have very nice policies and manuals and procedures, and they are under our desk or in our desks, on our shelves, and we do our own thing our own way. As bankers, we cannot afford to do that. And I'm happy that this certification program is also coming up that would also give some credence to people who have gone through this program on maintaining ethical standards in our industry. The governor or representatives of the governor, we are very hopeful that from what the president said, it is something that is also dear to us, and by ensuring that certain role categories, would have as the base of it people who would have gone through some form of rigor in the certification program, people who are qualified and chartered bankers, so that that aside all the things that we expect from their sales and marketing, their leadership, and they have a banking certification as an add-on, or someone who has it would get an advantage for some critical roles within the banks. Now, if it comes as more or less one of the things that comes through the central bank in the form of a notice or a directive, with some time for us to comply, I'm sure it is something that will be very well received. And I've taken the liberty to the President's voice on that. On this note, I welcome all of you to this morning's conference. I wish all of us a very fruitful deliberation. There's going to be two parts. We'll have this morning's session and we'll have a panel deliberation. Can't wait to also listen to Mr. Patrick Awua on what he intends to say to us. I wish all of us well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnny Wah, for those remarks. Very thought-provoking. We will now invite Mr. Patrick Awua to give a keynote address on the topic, Building Ethical Citizens and Leaders. Mr. Patrick Awua is the founder and president of Ashesi University, a private not-for-profit institution that has quickly gained a reputation for innovation and quality education in Ghana. In 2012, Ashesi University was ranked as one of the top 10 most respected companies in Ghana and was the first educational institution to win this award. In the same survey, Patrick Awua was named the 4th most respected CEO in Ghana. Before founding Ashesi University, Patrick worked as program manager for Microsoft, where, among other things, he spearheaded the development of dial-up internet working technologies and gained a reputation for bringing difficult projects to completion. He holds bachelor degrees in engineering and economics from Swarthmore College, an MBA from UC Berkeley School of Business, and has 4 honorary doctorates. He has won many prestigious international awards as well. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Patrick Ewa.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Mr. Otabil, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Please permit me to stand on already established protocol. And I would also like to apologize in advance. I have a hard stop at 11:30 because I have to be at another meeting in Brekusu and that I have to dash off to. I was asked to talk this morning about educating ethical citizens for our society and for our industry, including the banking industry. And I'd like to start by first sharing some words about excellence that I think are important to our deliberation. And I'll take these words from Aristotle's treatise, the Nicomachean Ethics, where he said excellence is of 2 dimensions, intellectual and moral. Intellectual excellence requires instruction, experience, and time. Moral excellence is really about the formation of habits. Now, Aristotle's words were summarized later by Will Durant, where he said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence is not an act, but a habit." Excellence is not an act, but a habit. So as we talk about educating ethical leaders or ethical citizens, it's really about trying to form the habits of the mind and trying to form habits of behavior that results in the society that we'd like to see. And I'd like to share an example of behavior from Ashesi University from just a month ago. About a month ago, we had some visitors from the United States come to visit us. We do this once a year. We have people come and do a deep dive into Ashesi to sit in our classrooms, engage with students, engage with the faculty, to hear from me and my executive team, to meet with alumni of the university. And when they came to visit, one of them dropped $100 on the floor accidentally. And this was found by a janitor who promptly returned the $100 to the front desk at the university. And we found the guest who was missing $100 and returned it to them. Now, why do I start a story about ethical leadership with a story about a cleaner who returns $100? I do so because for us at Ashesi University, ethics and integrity and building a high trust environment is the responsibility of everyone, from the boardroom to the most junior employee to the most junior student. It is a job for everybody, and it starts from the board. If somebody's on the board, that person is required to demonstrate fiduciary responsibility. And that fiduciary responsibility is really 2 things: a duty of care and a duty of loyalty. A duty of care means that they're managing the CEO, me, to make sure that I'm running the institution according to its mission, to work with me on formulating strategy and budget and holding me and my executive team to account. A duty of loyalty means avoiding conflicts of interest, declaring them where they exist, and recusing themselves from decisions where there's a conflict of interest. I too have fiduciary responsibility. My team has fiduciary responsibility. Now, Ashesi University is known for a student-run honor system where the students vote to be part of this system every year. And as part of this system, they promise to be individually ethical and to corporately hold each other to account as well. And in return, we do not invigilate their examinations. They self-invigilate. And this has been running since 2008. I should say that every year, some students cheat or attempt to cheat in exams. That's the bad news. And the good news is every year, the colleagues hold them to account. And this is something that, you know, when it started at Ashesi University, it was considered something as a fantastical thing, an unbelievable thing. There were people that I met, people I know, who are running theological institutes, who are basically educating future religious leaders who would not dare to have unproctored exams in a theological institution. And they couldn't understand how this had happened at Ashesi University. So I want to spend some time this morning describing how we've done it and how it's going. And I would summarize to say there are 5 things that have been critical for implementing a high trust, high integrity institution. One is articulating an inspiring vision and purpose and doing so repeatedly. The second is having a strong code of conduct. The third is modeling the behavior we want to see. The fourth is our curriculum and our pedagogy, our approach to teaching and learning. And the fifth is frankly inviting students to take ownership for the mission. So let me touch a little bit on each of these to illustrate what I mean. Purpose. It all begins with purpose. It is very difficult to get any group of people to row in one direction if they don't have a sense of the purpose of this group or this team. And the more inspiring the purpose is, the better. The bigger the purpose is, the more difficult it is for any one individual to achieve it, the better. And I'll give you an example of a purpose that I think is really fantastic. SpaceX, that is now, you know, a private company in the United States. It's building space rockets that has the largest constellation of satellites on Earth, that is building vehicles that will go to Mars. The purpose of that company, articulated by the CEO, is about making humanity an interplanetary species. Now, this is a very high goal. And you can imagine if you're an engineer at SpaceX, you're not just building rockets, you're making humanity an interplanetary species. I started with a story about a janitor at Ashesi University. And I can tell you confidently that the janitors at Ashesi University do not see their jobs as merely cleaning. They see their jobs as creating the environment where future leaders of our continent are being nurtured. And I communicate this to them every single year, that their work is critically important to the overall mission of the university. I communicate this to the security guards, to every member of our team, and to the faculty and the students. And when people see their job as part of something bigger, something grander, then they really reach for excellence. And if you come visit Ashesi University, when you step in the door and you look at the environment, you will recognize that the cleaners at this institution are doing excellent work. So it is setting this purpose is critically important. And as we think about, like, what does a banker think of themselves as? If the banking industry sees itself as a major force for creating wealth in our country, of enabling all the citizens of this country to build a savings culture, to create wealth, to support entrepreneurship and driving our economy, that's going to be a very different energy in the work of the banks than if it's just a job, if it's just counting money. The second, I talked about a strong code of conduct. In a sense, a code is just words. It's just language written on paper. But a code is made strong if it is enforced. A code that is not enforced is weak. It's just words on a piece of paper. And so the code of conduct of an Ashesi University is enforced by the institution. And the committees that enforce that code, the most important one, we call it the Ashesi Judicial Committee, has students, faculty, administrators, and executives on it. So it is all of us together enforcing the code. And you have to enforce the code for the little things so that the big things don't happen. And you have to definitely enforce the code for the big things. And when you discover that a senior person has violated the code, the enforcement must be very strong. Senior people violating your code will kill the business. And so that's what I mean by a strong code of conduct. So even if our students had not signed on to an honor system, if they had not pledged to have integrity, it wouldn't matter. We would still enforce our code. We would police our code, we would enforce. 3, I talked about modeling the behavior we want to see. And it starts, as I said, from the board. It continues on through me and my executive team. I'm very transparent with my organization. You can go to Ashesi's website, click About Reports, and you will find audited financial statements pasted publicly for everybody to see. You can go to the website and see an abstract of all the violations that have occurred since we started and the penalties that were applied. We take out the people's names, but the action and the consequences of the action is recorded for everybody to see. We do the right thing ourselves. We do not tolerate any kind of corruption among our ranks. And we, most importantly, we celebrate good behavior. So you will get what you celebrate. 4th, the curriculum and pedagogy. And this topic, I think, is something that, unfortunately, I don't think Ghana's educational system is doing very well at, especially in higher education. So I think that, and it's just me, my team and I think, that if we're really intent on educating people, We should engage them in very deep discussions, critical discussions about the ideas in the world, the ideas in our country, both good and bad. Ideas from history and emerging things. And it is this critical engagement and debate, this philosophical engagement of ideas that actually forms the intellect. That is the intersection between intellectual excellence and moral excellence. In our case, it is very real because moral weakness actually also results in intellectual weakness. By this, I mean, if a student decides that the way they're going to try and get through school is to just cheat through exams and just get a certificate, that student also does not learn because that student thinks there's a shortcut to getting a certificate, and they don't learn, and therefore they don't have the intellectual excellence that they need. So what we do is we engage students in seminars, and I think Rebecca will describe some of those a little bit in more detail in the panel talking about nurturing and giving voice to values. It's very important that the educational system is not about preaching at students, and it's not about memorizing facts, but really about engaging their minds on the big important questions. What is a good society? What is truth? What is beauty? Or as Professor Jetchi, the late Professor Jetchi asked, what is development? And how do we attain it in our society? And then finally, inviting students to take ownership for our mission. I will share very briefly the origin of the honor system at Ashesi. It actually began in 2006 when a visiting professor came to my office and told me that 1/3 of his students had cheated on an assignment. Now, when I heard this, I was shocked. Ashesi had been running for 4 years. We were, as I say, enforcing our code of conduct. We were modeling behavior. We were doing all of these beautiful things I've talked about. And here was a professor from the University of Washington here in Accra telling me that 1/3 of his students had copied each other on an assignment that was going to count towards their grade. And so at our next faculty and staff retreat, I asked us to confront the most painful truth about our existence. And I suggested that that painful truth was that Ashesi was failing its mission. Because if students will cheat if they think they can get away with it, and will do the right thing only if we're looking over their shoulder, then by definition, we failed. Because we're trying to educate people who are deeply ethical, who are going to be good citizens and future leaders in our society. And out of that retreat, a lot of deep conversation on the faculty and with the staff, the administration, we decided to challenge the students to take ownership for the university's mission. And they then started a series of campus debates, talking about the culture of the institution, the culture of the student body, what they liked, what they didn't like. And after a 1.5 years of debate, they agreed to establish this honor system. It began with an admission of failure. It began with confronting the reality that we didn't have things right. And I would suggest to all of us here this morning that to really make change, you have to begin with an honest assessment of where we are. And then you have to engage in how to get to where you want to be. The honor system at Ashesi University is not a one-time thing that happened. You know, they started in 2006, 2008, they had the honor system. Every year there's a debate about it, and incoming students have to vote whether they want to be on the honor system or not, and the class must vote with at least a 2/3 majority to be considered a class that we would trust to be in the system. Why do we do this? Well, first of all, they asked to do it. They wanted to have the same experience as the people who sort of founded the honor system at Ashesi. So we said we'd let them do it. But the more important reason is because that first time when they were debating, we realized that actually getting students to be ethical in a university is a change management project, because they've been through primary school, junior high school, they start cheating. In fact, they would tell us about teachers coaching them on how to cheat on the BECE because the stakes are so high in that exam. And then in senior high school, they cheat some more. And then they come to university, and what do we expect? So we recognize that this is a change project. And so to have a change management project, we should engage them completely in the same process that the pioneers of the honor system had gone through. And this is the journey that Ashesi University is on. It is an ongoing journey. It will not end. And I think that the real big challenge for us now that we're engaging is connecting with other universities here in Ghana as well as outside of Ghana on how we might all work together to achieve the same results. Because if we're able to get every student in Ghana, every student in Africa, frankly, every student in the world to go through a process of developing not only intellectual excellence, but also moral excellence, then we will change the world. Thank you very much. And as I said at the beginning, unfortunately, I have to leave and race to my next meeting. So I'll be taking my leave of you at this point. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patrick Iwa, for that thought-provoking keynote address. My key takeaway from this speech is that we need to start with a sense of purpose. What is our sense of purpose as bankers? It is to preserve the financial resources of the nation for future generations. And that means we have to be ethical. I would invite our chairman to give a few words.
Thank you very much. So I'm sure you started the day very well. You all agree with me that we've had a very beautiful delivery by Mr. Patrick Awuah. I have personally taken note of a few things here that I'll run through a summary when we are giving out the closing remarks. So at this point, I will invite Dr. Bernard Otabil, the representative of the governor, to give us the keynote address. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Johnny Well. And my name is Bernard Otabil. Let me first of all extend the apology of the governor. He would have liked to be here personally, and the change for me to deliver the speech on his behalf was a very, very last minute arrangement, because we had all prepared ourselves to receive him in the auditorium and something happened. So the words here are from the governor, and from the speech, you see how excited he was to be here this morning to be part of this program. So the president, Chartered Institute of Bankers, Ghana, Mr. Benjamin Amenume. The founder and president, Ashasi University, Mr. Patrick Iwa, he just finished his presentation and has to step into another meeting. The Chief Executive Officer, Ghana Association of Banks, Mr. John Ewa. The Chief Executive Officer, Chartered Institute of Bankers, Ghana, Mr. Robert Zato. Managing Directors of Banks, Management and Staff of Banks, Fellows and Associates of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, Ghana, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, and I welcome you all to the program. It is a pleasure that the Governing Council of the Chartered Institute of Bankers has, for the second time in a space of 2 months, deemed it fit to invite me to deliver a keynote address. First was the launch of the 60th anniversary, and for today, we have the 27th National Banking and Ethics Conference under the theme, Redefining Professionalism Through Ethics. This theme is apt and resonates with ongoing developments in the industry. Ladies and gentlemen, the focus on professionalism and ethics being championed by the Institute inspires a lot of hope for the industry. Indeed, the importance of ethical behavior in banking and financial markets has never been as relevant as it is today because of the moral and economic efficiency issues involved. This industry thrives on trust, and the lack thereof threatens the stability and sustainability of the entire financial sector with adverse economic consequences. As we are all aware, the core mandate of banks is financial intermediation, and any misconduct by industry players erodes public confidence and therefore proves detrimental to the entire sector, as was experienced here in Ghana some few years ago. Banks are indispensable to economic growth and therefore have the moral obligation to safeguard financial integrity in the interest of depositors and shareholders, and indeed the economy at large. The critical issues to focus on regarding the chosen theme include the ethical frameworks that guide banks' policies and procedures, and the values that shape the actions of banks. Ladies and gentlemen, this keynote address, therefore, will focus on building and maintaining an ethical culture that promotes and sustains ethical decision-making and good conduct in the banking sector. To recall, at the launch of the 60th anniversary of the FCIB, I gave an exposition on the importance of ethics within the banking sector and how to promote ethical leadership and embed ethical culture in our respective banking institutions. The connection between ethics and the environment, social, and governance, that is the ESG model, was highlighted and supported by the gains banks have made in implementing the Ghana Sustainable Banking Principles. Obviously, these feed into the vision of building a sustainable banking industry that is hinged on strong ethical and professional conduct in Ghana. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, professionalism is an important pillar in banking. The literature on banking and finance is replete with discussions on the critical role professionalism plays in the banking and finance business. However, professionalism must not only be understood in the context of acquiring degrees or certificates, but must also be viewed in the broader sense to include the attitudinal and behavioral conduct of individuals in their professions. The educational certifications give professions, but not professionals. Professionalism is governed by codes of ethics and commitment to values such as accountability, respect, self-regulation, honesty, and integrity on the job. This shows that professionalism cannot exist without ethics. Ladies and gentlemen, being ethical is inherent in the concept of professionalism. An expert in any field, particularly in banking and finance, with weak ethical values becomes an institutional liability. And for this reason, the Bank of Ghana collaborated with the FCIB Ghana and the Ghana Association of Bankers to launch the Ghana Banking Code of Ethics and Business Conduct, which reinforces provisions in the Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana Act 2019, Act 991. The code is expected to uphold the tenets of professionalism and promote strong ethical standards in the banking industry. In addition to the code of ethics, the risk management approach in the banking sector should make room for the assessment and management of culture and conduct risks. These risks are intertwined, and unethical behaviors are often associated with multiplicity of cultural factors, which must be managed diligently, just like all other risks. While the Bank of Ghana monitors proper ethical conduct among regulated institutions, it has also implemented its own internal ethics and compliance program. The objective is to entrench ethical culture among bank staff, to model the culture and ethical behavior expected from a regulator of the banking industry. 5 years ago, the bank established an Office of Ethics and Internal Investigations to strengthen good governance and promote the highest standards of ethical conduct commensurate with the bank's mandates. This was part of the commitment of the bank to turn the tide of ethical drift into ethical lift, to ensure that as regulators, we demand of ourselves the highest standards in the course of our work. The Bank of Ghana's Code of Ethics and Ethics Policies provide a framework for ethical decision-making and conduct within the bank. Separate ethics rules and standards have also been developed as a guide for bank supervisors and examiners as safeguards from ethical misconduct in the line of duty. These initiatives aim to build a strong and healthy organizational culture that would ensure that the bank achieves its mandate based on sound ethical principles. Ethics training is also a mandatory requirement for every Bank of Ghana employee and forms part of the performance management system. Ultimately, it is expected that the joint efforts of stakeholders in the banking industry will go a long way to improve the ethical conduct of all staff working in the financial sector to uphold trust and confidence in the sector. Ladies and gentlemen, ethical business practice should be pursued relentlessly and aggressively by all industry players. In doing this, we must adopt a collaborative approach involving every individual in the institution so that doing the right thing becomes embedded in the work culture. Each bank must aim to create a values-driven culture agreed on by both the leader and the leadership, which should serve as a constant reference within the bank system and processes. When the culture within the banking sector is values-based and values-driven, stakeholders, including depositors, would likely align their values to that of the bank. By that, a strong ethical organizational culture supported by ethical decision-making and conduct would emerge and enhance professionalism within the industry. Distinguished guests, the bank's SDIs and PSP's fraud reports that the Bank of Ghana issues yearly give strong signals that our focus on ethics and internal behavior should be strengthened. A single case of fraud involving an employee of a bank or any financial institution affects the whole industry and weakens public confidence in the industry. Although the 2022 bank's SDI and PS fraud report showed a decline in staff involvement in fraud cases to 188 in 2022 from 278 in 2021, the persistence of these unethical acts among employees of banks and SDIs remain a concern. As reported, most of the incidents involving bank staff had to do with cash theft, that is cash suppression from customers, and fraudulent withdrawals on accounts of customers. These trends show the need to educate and inculcate ethical behavior among staff of financial institutions, raising awareness of ethical issues, providing banking professionals with ethical training, and fostering a culture of ethics are important building blocks to establishing the right culture within banking institutions. This would also help banking professionals develop the knowledge and skills to navigate complex ethical dilemmas, as well as anticipate and deal properly with ethical blind spots. Ladies and gentlemen, it is gratifying to note that as part of today's program, the CIB will launch a newly redesigned flagship chartered banker curriculum and an ethics certification program. These new professional development programs would help create the required specialized knowledge and improve competency for the benefit of the industry. But more importantly, it would help banking professionals imbibe the right ethical values to contribute to building the right ethical culture in the various institutions. Let me add that the ethics certification is for all employees working in the banking industry, and all bank staff must complete the certification program and be recertified annually. Fit and proper assessment for key management positions should also include ethics certification. These are initiatives the Bank of Ghana firmly supports. So I believe that Mr. John Ewua and also the President, your request has been answered. So the Prophet Governor saw it coming and provided the answers in advance. I'm also aware of the newly redesigned Chartered Banker qualification, which is relevant to all employees of banks. To build a professional and sustainable banking industry, professional qualification and continuous professional development for those working in the industry must be taken seriously. Just as lawyers and doctors pursue approved courses of study, so must bankers. This will ensure the sustainable development of the financial sector. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, it is my fervent hope that the collective efforts from the regulator, banking institutions, and their associations, training institutions like CIB, and the individual bankers themselves will help stem the tide of unethical behaviors and reduce the occurrence of ethical violations to the barest minimum or eliminate them completely to raise the levels of trust and confidence of the public in our industry. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bernard Otabil, for that address on behalf of Governor Dr. Addison. Indeed, professionalism cannot exist without ethics. We must place emphasis on ethics training and ethical business practices. Those are my key takeaways from your presentation. I now have the honor of inviting Mr. Robert Jato, CEO of CIB Ghana, to deliver a presentation on the topic Developing Trusted Professionals for the Financial Services Industry, CIB Ghana's Approach. Mr. Robert Jato is the Chief Executive Officer of Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana. He's a chartered banker, a chartered accountant, and a strategy consultant with over 20 years work experience across industries and multicultural environment. He has a deep understanding of the financial services industry, having worked as a banker and management consultant in Ghana, Nigeria, England, Scotland, and other West African countries. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Jato.
Good morning. I do hope that you can see me behind the podium. I will stand on existing protocols and just go straight into my presentation. So I would do that. But just before I do, sometime in July this year, I attended the World Conference of Banking Institutes in Malaysia. On my way back, I made a stopover in Dubai. And when I got to the airport, someone thought that this guy must be a very rich politician from Africa. And so they made me an offer to take me around to see properties that potentially I could buy. I'm not too sure what they saw. So we went on this tour and I was quite impressed. And so at one point, I asked the tour guide, who is also the property consultant, what is it that makes this country so impressive? He stopped for a moment and then he looked at me and said, see, I am from Egypt. I am an African like you. I know that Africa has more resources than we have here in UAE. So there are three things that make this country what it is. One, if they announce something, they do it. What they announce is what they do, and what they do is what they announce. Two, they do it as zero corruption. And the third one was that they use their knowledge and mind to solve their own problems. I wasn't too sure about the third one. The first two, quite clear. So I asked him, give me an example. And then he said to me, you know, Dubai is in the desert. I said, yes, I know that. He said, have you heard about cloud seeding? I said, what is that? He said, the authorities in Dubai take planes, go into the clouds, spray it, and they induce rain to fall in the desert. I said, well, that's what we learned in geography, how rain falls. But how have I applied it? What's the moral of this story to start with? One, last year, for those of you who were at this conference, we had a very lively discussion around ESG. I was asked what will CIB do about it. I said next year conference, which is this year conference, we will not print brochures. That's our first commitment. So for those of you who don't have brochures, I think you can just use the QR code. So, by the way, when we're going to do that, someone said, I faced some opposition. He said, oh, but governor will be there. And definitely the high table, we needed to print some things for them. I said, but the governor just launched this digital currency for the industry. You must be very digital. Then they said, what about Elsie? I said, well, I met her at an event. When I asked her whether she would be here, she just used her phone and gave me the answer. They must be very, very digital. That was the first lesson. We are committed. We announced that we would not do printing. We have imitated Dubai, if you like. The second point, though, is that we said it doesn't make sense for someone in key management position to come and do level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and become a chartered banker. So we'll design the accelerated route to the chartered banker for key management and boards. We have done that. The governor has launched that. If you don't clap for me, you don't get lunch. But the third one is how we're using our mind to solve the problem. Certainly, we know that our industry needs more professionals, and therefore, we are creating accelerated route. The corruption bit, I believe that's why we are here, to find solutions. So I'm looking forward to the panel discussion in terms of how do we give voice to values, but most importantly, how do we embed this ethics in our society? So I'm sure we'll make some few announcements again today. And I'm here to talk about the CIB approach to building trusted professionals in our industry. Great. Very quickly, if we can switch part of the light off, I think it will make this clearer. So in terms of outline, very quickly, it will be what's our mandate and how have we been approaching that mandate and what does the mandate mean? And as Mr. President mentioned, we are launching the newly redesigned Chartered Banker, our flagship qualification today, but we're also launching the ethics certification program. What's in that? And so we'll share that with you. And then I'll share some very quick view on our anniversary up to now. So our aspiration and ambition is to be the most relevant institute of excellence for banking education, not just in Ghana, but in Africa. Our mandate is to promote banking education and regulate the practice of banking in Ghana. And that's based on the Chartered Institute of Bankers Act 2019, Act 991. So what does that mandate mean? It means developing trusted professionals for the financial services sector. It means putting ethics high on the agenda of banks and bankers. It means the institute should be and must be the talent and leadership engine for our industry. So how have we been contributing to talents in our industry? Between 2020 and 2023, I'm glad to announce that we have produced close to 800 chartered bankers for the banking sector, precisely 780. Now, for the first time this year in particular, we have 52% of our inductees and graduates being females. So we are on the path of sustainability. The youngest chartered banker we had this year is actually 24 years old, and the oldest 60 years old. So it's never too late to start. What's our industry context? And why must we respond to that industry context? The truth is that platform businesses, more nimble, more agile businesses, are disrupting our business models. They are eating our breakfast and our lunch, if we are not careful, dinner as well. In other words, banking business models are under attack. And it's a straight fight. The headlines, if you look at them, it's really clear that we need to do something. Depositors worried over fraud. Fraud hit 1 billion. Former Absa Bank staff stole a certain amount of money. So these are headlines that really are eroding customer confidence and trust in our industry. And this is no news, really, because I guess we've all seen them, right? So whose responsibility is it for us to fix this? In our view, as an institute, there is a tripod of our banking sector, and we must all work together to build back better the confidence and trust of our society. And these are the operators. That's John and the industry as a whole, the regulator, the central bank, and certainly the educator, Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana. And that's a tripod on which our industry sits. And we must all work together to restore confidence and build trust. So the approach we have taken is need-driven in response. The chartered banker qualification must mean something for those who actually get it. And for us, that means being a professional. It should give you an opportunity to develop yourself, certainly recognition, networking opportunities, but also higher salary and hopefully retirement, good retirement. But like I said, it must be need-driven. So we spoke with a number of CEOs, and some of them, Mr. Sapo, NIB, thank you so much for responding. And a number of other CEOs responded in terms of what are your real needs, what are your skills gap, current and future. And here's what a number of practitioners, including HR heads, have told us. Things around professionalism and ethics, customer centricity, cybersecurity, data and analytics, innovation, ability to make the right decisions. And these are things that banks and bankers require in terms of skills to perform. So, like I said, we've launched the Chartered Banker for the Executive Leadership Program. And as John mentioned earlier, we launched the Ghana Banking Code of Ethics and Business Conduct in 2020. Today, we are launching a few more programs. So let me take the newly redesigned FCIB qualification. First, the design approach is clear. We were very consultative. We set up a technical committee to look at this. And certainly a conceptual framework and approach was developed. We engaged a number of stakeholders, banks, MDs of banks, and others who are not necessarily in our industry, students alike. And we then went into the development of the curriculum itself. And we are launching this today. We would also be ensuring that we make the necessary noise about it. And we are counting on all of you to help us achieve that. Now, what does it entail and what does it respond to? And what are some of the things that we heard when we engaged? One, that our curriculum should be simpler, should be connected, it should be relevant, and should be future fit. And certainly it should be customer focused. It should address the needs of customers, but most importantly, it must put professionalism and ethics at the core of it. So this is how the new syllabus looks like. There are 4 levels, level 1 through to 4. If you take the level 1 as fundamentals of financial services, and there are a number of subjects there from monetary policy, monetary and financial systems, law. You go to level 2, which is the next level, which is the financial services practitioner. And that's how we've named that level. It has a number of other subjects, particularly focused on risk management, and then certainly ability to make the right decisions. You go to level 3, which we are calling the expert practitioner. So we have fundamentals, we definitely have practitioners, and then we have those who are experts. The final level is what we call the capstone, and that's an integrated focus. It's focused on strategic leadership in financial services, and that's risk management, strategy, governance, and sustainability, of course, ethics. So really, this is the competency framework. We believe that bankers must have some key competencies. So the technical skills that every banker must have. And then, of course, the digital skills that we must have because we operate in a digital age. Then, of course, the leadership ability to influence and get the right results and get the right performance for our stakeholders. And then, of course, understanding and sensing the macro environment and making sense of it. So the competency framework is very, very clear. So what's unique about this new program? Like we said before, there are 3 levels. You have level 1 through to 4, and there are 13 modules in total. Our current syllabus has 19 subjects that you must pass. The new syllabus will have 13. Now, what problem are we trying to solve? And this is the customer angle we have taken to this. First, banks must solve the problems of their customers. But banks therefore need some performance and need some competencies to be able to achieve that. And those competencies are embedded in our syllabus. And therefore, our design is really around students' ability to learn the right things with the right support, then to be able to build the competencies and be able to perform at the workplace and definitely create value for the bank so that the bank can create value for stakeholders. So really the features and benefits, this is a very streamlined or simplified ethics integration and transparency and making sure that we are doing banking in a responsible way. Of course, we also have digital, it's digital driven. In terms of the skills, we focus on data and analytics, AI, certainly all the other elements, cybersecurity, very, very important. And then, of course, it is digitally delivered. We are using our LMS to achieve that. Of course, we need some funding for that, and I don't need to say that. So I'll be coming to you for support. It's also, if you realize what I've been saying so far, it's more than banking. It's also financial services. So we are going beyond banking and we are making it modular, which means that you don't necessarily have to be in a particular bank to do this. So let's say someone works in Treasury in VRA or works at MTN. This program should be a good fit in terms of ability to leverage to deliver. There's rigor and certainly there's resources to support it. So here's an example of what we've been able to develop in terms of the study manual or what I call the e-books. But beyond the book, we need to build content, videos, and audios, podcasts, and some online communities to support the learning. We started this with ChatGPT, and we've written all the books as we speak. But as we have realized, this is a profession, and we therefore need experts. So we've trained all our experts on this new curriculum and how it will be taught and examined. We are yet to get the experts to do the work, but they've been trained and ready to roll. So the examination mindset around this or structure, level 1 to level 2, will be very much focused on ensuring that students grasp concepts. Level 2 certainly will test ability to conceptualize, but also solve problems and ability to make the right decisions. And certainly candidates should also then be able to solve the problems, but also be able to communicate. So that would be something that we'll examine. At the final level, which is an integrated level, it will be case-driven and your ability to apply the case study to solve a real-life problem, but also in an advisory capacity to senior executives. So what is really the ask with this new syllabus? We think the qualification is for everyone working in banking industry or financial services sector. And as mentioned, there must be some designated rules, and these are not all. Certainly, if you are head of credit risk or head of operations, head of treasury, and some other key significant rules, this is a qualification that we must demand and we must insist on. FCIB certainly should be a key consideration for key management approval, and certainly the FCIB qualification is something that, and I'm glad Mr. Osejesi is here, something that we must insist on when we go on on-site examinations from BSD perspective. So that's the new curriculum. Again, lunch is at stake if you don't clap. I'm joking. I'll move on very quickly to the ethics certification program. I'm extremely delighted. Thank you, Bernard, and certainly with support of Governor. Governor has been very instrumental in giving guidance on this. So the ethics certification program is designed or has been designed in collaboration with Bank of Ghana and working more specifically with Bernard and his team. So what would you find in the ethics program? Why are we doing it? We think this is a sustainability issue. And we think that there's the benefits of really strengthening trust and reputation. And people who take this course are actually signaling that they are prioritizing ethical conduct. And I believe that's the banks. It's really an opportunity for us to achieve stability in our industry and really prevent the next crisis. I've been maybe fortunate or unfortunate. In 2008, I was working in a bank during the global financial crisis, and that bank got taken over. I saw a number of colleagues go home, and that was a problem. This back in Ghana, 2017 through 2018, 19, I was involved in the banking sector cleanup in terms of support, and I saw the devastating effect of sometimes on ethical decisions or actions and inactions. And if we want to prevent the next crisis, we believe that the ethics certification is crucial. Certainly, this will enhance customer trust and loyalty, will prevent corruption and fraud, as we have seen in the headlines. Certainly, will promote responsible banking going forward. So in terms of content, it's been designed to take care of junior staff, people in supervisory or middle management positions, but also in key management and board levels. So we've customized the ethics certification. So there are 3 different models. So depending on what you do in your bank, we have a model that suits you. So this will be delivered on the CIB Ghana e-learning platforms. We'll provide the credentials. You log in, go to my course, select an assigned course. We'll work very closely with the HR heads of the various institutions to make sure that we have the details and create the appropriate credentials to support you. So in terms of content, you'll find that there is the dialogue element, there are case studies, there are scenarios. But so case studies, dialogues, knowledge check, there are activities that are built into the course online to help you. Now, there's an assessment. At the end of the assessment, we have multiple, well, you have a certificate, but the assessment form is multiple choice. The pass mark is 70. There are 3 attempts that we allow, and then we give you a certificate. Now, as we said, this will be, there will be annual recertification. So the intention is to really make this free. So there's no excuse for any bank saying that we will not do this. There's no cost dimension to this. I was expecting a club, but you don't have to. The second thing is that it's actually for our corporate members because you actually pay subscription. And so this is a benefit to you for being a corporate member. And if you are not a corporate member, we'd encourage you to join us as well. We also expect that by June, July, every year, all staff across every bank must complete this. Would actually have annual recertification. It also means that we'll update the content. Each bank will be monitored. So we'll create ethics league. We have the Premier League. Now we'll have ethics league for the banks. And there'll be a table and we'll publish that. And we hope that the best performing banks, Governors Day, there will be some recognition. So there's some carrots there. I'm sure there will be sanctions as well. We'll find a way of implementing that with the support of Bank of Ghana. So how do you register? We work very closely with the HR. So if you're an HR head in this room or listening to us, please contact CIB Ghana and would get the process started. So we believe this should be part of the fit and proper required assessment as you have. And thank you, Governor, for supporting that aspiration for the industry. Definitely, this is how CIB Ghana is responding in redefining professionalism in our industry. I'll take the liberty, Mr. Chairperson, to share some anniversary highlights. So we launched on the 12th of September, and I'm sure you can see yourself in there if you were there. This is our new auditorium, which is also available to members. And if you're a corporate member, you get a discount using our anniversary, our auditorium at the Institute. And then, of course, we had a panel discussion on banking the real economy. So every quarter, we do one thought leadership. And this one was banking the real economy. And John, thank you. Socrates, if you're, and then Professor Noel Tego, you'll be on the panel today, Cozy, at Ghana Enterprises Agency. We also then ran a financial literacy program, which we launched in the Ashanti region. Here are colleagues, we use chartered bankers, and thank you to all the banks that participated. I've just listed the number of banks and where the colleagues came from. In total, we covered our 3,000 students in 9 schools across 3 regions. And that's something that will continue, and we're calling on other banks and chartered bankers to join us in building financial literacy and skills across the industry. Just over the weekend, we graduated and inducted 161 bankers, chartered bankers. And thank you, Mr. Daniel Aldo, for being our guest. And of course, Mr. Julian Opuni for supporting the orientation and speaking to our graduates and inductees. So we've had some support. You recall at the launch, we gave anniversary cloth to all the MDs of the various banks. Here are the banks that have responded so far. We're calling on the others who haven't supported us yet to do so. But we are extremely grateful to the branch represented here and AFC, Agriculture and Finance Consultants. Thank you. I think you have a stand outside. So thank you very much for supporting us. So the next set of events, we have the Governor's Day, which is on the 1st of December. We'll crown this with Thanksgiving and Carols Night. We launched an appeal for FAN 60 for 60. We are still counting on all of you to support us. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jatu, for that insightful presentation, which gives a lot of hope for the future of our industry. We're now at a point in our program where we launch the new FCIB curriculum and ethics certification program. This activity will be led by all our dignitaries on the podium, and I also invite all past CIB presidents to join us upstage to execute this activity. Thank you.
Was supposed to do it of the curriculum. And it's a very heavy shoe that I'm standing in now. So I better do it quickly and go back. Right. So this curriculum has 4 levels: level 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in his speech, he declared the support of the bank and his personal support for this particular program, noting strongly the need for ethics training and professionalism. So on behalf of the governor and the Bank of Ghana, I reiterate and recommit the bank's support for the curriculum for the CIB. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Council of CIB, Mr. CEO, for all the work that you've done in coming out with this new curriculum. On behalf of the Association of Banks, we should also um, give you the thumbs up and to say that we fully support this new curriculum and will get our members to also offer the program when it rolls out finally. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is the second part of it, the ethics certification for financial sector. We had a very strong input into this. This LMS has been designed, built, and I would say mimics what we have there at the central bank. And as the governor noted in the speech, we also do have an ethics certification regime. And every employee of Bank of Ghana is expected to take the ethics knowledge test every year and get recertified on an annual basis. So we can't really stay out of this. Mrs. Dato and the team have been very instrumental, and we've collaborated, we've worked on it, we know what is in there, and we fully, again, support the program going forward. Thank you.
So thank you. On behalf of Governing Council of the Institute, we are extremely grateful for.
They said I spoke without saying the right thing. So without taking those words back, I add more. The ethics program, therefore, is duly launched. And and in my language, Sankofa is never a sin. So I go back a step back again and say the curriculum is also duly launched. So everything is duly launched.
So thank you, Governing Council members. Thank you.
Thank you, Council, for launching the ethics certification. Ladies and gentlemen, to give a practical perspective on today's theme, we invite Mr. Sam Edu, Executive Director of GCB PLC, to give us a lecture on the topic, the state of play, ethical dilemmas of banks and bankers. I know we are all eager to hear some practical nuggets to better our professional lives. Mr. Sam Edu is the Executive Director, Wholesale and Investment Banking. He has a strong focus and understanding of the sub-Saharan African markets. He's worked in Africa and the UK with structuring, origination, trading, and execution experience in several African markets, including Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Tanzania, and a host of others. He started his banking career with Standard Chartered Bank. He also worked with Barclays, both in Africa and England, and worked also with Fidelity Bank before joining GCB PLC. Welcome.
Thank you very much. When is lunch, by the way? I just would like to confirm if I stand in between yourselves and lunch. And if I do, I do have about 63 pages. I didn't realize I was going to do a lecture, but given that it has been announced that I'll be doing a lecture, I would encourage you to bear with me for the next 1.5 hours or so. As a banker, it's indeed not the easiest topic to talk about ethics. It is indeed something that you think deeply about, and every word you say has some form of self-examination as the words come out of your mouth, because it is indeed a deep conversation that we must have and look to address. I must say that we must probably put our hands together and congratulate Robert Chateau and the team. And I'll tell you why. If I look at the new curriculum and the certification program, it is a massive step for the industry, and it's something that all of us here must be really proud. And well done, Robert and team, and all those involved in making this a success. Today, my long lecture was supposed to be done by my boss, Kofi Adamako, who's taking up some official assignment in Egypt, and hence has asked me to try and do this on his behalf. There are a few disclaimers. Anything you like about it, you can ascribe to me. The parts you're not terribly happy about, I would encourage you to ascribe it to my boss, if that is fair with all of us. So I'd also stand on all existing protocols, Mr. Chairman, of course. It is a great pleasure that I participate in this year's National Banking and Ethics Conference as a guest speaker in a year in which our Treasured Institute marks 60th anniversary under the theme Redefining Professionalism in Banking Through Ethics. Today, I've been asked to contribute to the discourse on the topic, The State of Play, Ethical Dilemmas of Banks and Bankers in Uncertain Times. First, I would like to commend the Chartered Institute of Bankers for focusing the lens on the issue of ethics in a timely manner as this. I strongly believe that bringing to the forefront the discussion on ethics is excessively appropriate, especially at a time when banks are suffering from the impact of the domestic exchange program. Banks have been hit quite hard, and there is a lot of emphasis and effort to try and bounce back as quickly as possible. That poses some challenges and some threats to the way we do business in a sustainable way. Interestingly, this occasion also coincides with the 70th anniversary of my bank, GCB Bank PLC, the foremost indigenous bank in the country. 70 years of existence means that the bank has thrived through many political and economic cycles, booms and busts. I must say one of the key pillars that has ensured GCB sustenance and longevity for the past 7 decades is our commitment to a culture of good ethical behavior and compliance. I'd like to set the stage, the ethical landscape of banking. Mr. Chairman, at the heart of our discussion lies the perpetual tension between profit motives and ethical considerations. The financial industry, as a key driver of economic growth, is inherently competitive and highly profit-oriented. However, the pursuit of profit must be tempered with the ethical principles that safeguard the long-term well-being of all stakeholders, from individual customers to the global economy. The echoes of the recent banking sector crisis and the consequence thereof still reverberates, serving as a stark reminder of what transpires when ethical considerations are overshadowed by short-term gain. Ethical dilemmas faced by banks and bankers. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like now to highlight some areas of ethical dilemmas that banks and bankers are faced with today, and which I believe we should all ponder on. Number one, compliance as a baseline upholding the rule of law. Compliance as a baseline upholding the rule of law. At its core, regulatory compliance provides a baseline for ethical conduct within the banking industry. Adherence to the law and regulation is not negotiable. It is a foundation upon which trust in financial institutions is built. However, the ethical responsibility of banks goes far beyond mere compliance. It involves a commitment to upholding the spirit of the law and actively participating in the development of regulation that promotes ethical banking practices. Banks must view compliance not as a burden, but as an opportunity to demonstrate their commitment to ethical conduct. This involves investing in robust compliance programs, conducting regular internal audits, and actively engaging with regulatory bodies to address emerging ethical challenges. In speaking to one of my colleagues before coming up today, he described the theme of ethics as being a triangle. At the very top of that triangle, he placed a benchmark. He placed the concept that we must have some standards that we collectively hold ourselves up against. Then at the bottom left-hand side of that triangle, and I can see him smiling at me, and I should charge him for using his expose here today. At the bottom left-hand corner of that triangle is our actions. And what he went on to say, which I found quite striking, was that there is the need for there to be clear consequences for actions that we take that don't fall in line with our standards. I must say, I was pretty happy when I heard Ashesi publish a list of all wrongdoings and a list of all consequences, and this is available for all to see. And I think this is something that we must look to emulate. Of course, let's take out the very names that are embedded there, but I think there is a lot from for us to learn from those sorts of actions. My second point is profit maximization versus social responsibility. How do we strike a delicate balance? Ethical dilemmas of profit maximization versus social responsibility is not a new one, but it is perhaps more pronounced today than ever before. As custodians of the financial systems, banks wield significant influence over the allocation of resources and the distribution of wealth. And as we navigate through uncertain economic terrain, it becomes paramount for us to adopt a more holistic approach, one that integrates ethical considerations into the very core of our operations. In a rapidly changing global economy, the definition of social responsibility is evolving. It encompasses not only the responsible lending practices, but also a commitment to financial inclusion, sustainable development, ESG principles, and the long-term well-being of communities in which we work. Today, a bank is no longer just a financial intermediary. We are an integral component of the social fabric in which we find ourselves. Mr. Chairman, it is therefore commendable that the Bank of Ghana, with the support from the Ghana Association of Banks, is championing the incorporation of sustainable banking principles in the operations and lending decisions of banks in Ghana. My third point, responsible lending practices beyond the bottom line. I believe that it is extremely important that we all look at what responsible banking really entails. we should look beyond doing the right thing. I think it's terribly important that we look to capture areas of the market that we traditionally would not bank. And sometimes we don't bank some of these sectors because they are difficult to operate in. But as ethical bankers, we need to turn our attention to some of these unserviced parts of the economy. 4, financial inclusion and bridging the gap. In an era where financial services are increasingly digital, there is a risk of leaving certain segments of the population behind. Ethical banking involves a commitment to financial inclusion, ensuring that all individuals, regardless of the social status or geographic location, have access to basic financial services. Banks must actively work to bridge the digital divide, leveraging technology to extend financial services to underserved and underbanked population. We heard this morning about purpose, and if we have the right purpose, this will guide us in this decision. My fifth and last point is about the algorithmic bias and discrimination. AI is forming a significant part of what we do, but embedded in AI is the decisioning that we implement through the AI. It is possible for us to emphasize discrimination if we don't take a close look at the decisioning processes that are embedded in AI. It is important that we guard against using technology to exclude access to banking to various groups of people. Mr. Chairman, the short-term challenges to pursuit of ethical banking are numerous. And I did tell you that this was indeed a long lecture, so bear with me. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be the first to admit that there are some practical stumbling blocks that impede the successful banking pursuit of ethical banking. These challenges require immediate attention and strategic solutions from all stakeholders if we are to make any gains in this regard. I will touch on a few quickly. Number one, the cost of implementing ethical practices may initially appear high, and being a pace setter in this area may come at great costs. It is therefore important that we achieve critical mass, a larger amassment of participants for this to be useful to society. Point two, also customers may lack the awareness of ethical practices embraced by banks, and the expectations may not be aligned with the evolving landscape. Every so often, we hear of stories of what some bankers have done wrong, but we don't hear often enough when bankers have stood their ground and said to people trying to bring upon them unethical behavior to light. And I think it's important that as a community, we share a lot of those instances to show the good that we get up to as bankers. It is the responsibility of everyone to make this happen. The third issue I will talk to is about the issue of competitive disadvantage. And it may come across when we undertake our work that we are put at a disadvantage when we hold a high standard. But rest assured, over the long term, this would work in our best interest. It is important that we promote a collective and widespread adoption of these standards. Number four, and this was touched upon earlier on today, somehow, and it's difficult to have the science around, but our culture as a people may sometimes have the tendency to blur the lines of ethics and may be seen to be somewhat receptive to some practices. We need to take account of this, and we need to look into some of these things, discuss these concerns, and find solutions together. In concluding, shaping an ethical future for banking. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, the state of play for banks and bankers in uncertain times demands a profound commitment to ethics. The ethical dilemmas faced by the banking industries are not abstract. They are real. They have real-world consequences that impact individuals, communities, and the global economy. As we navigate through the complexities of profit motives, technological advancements, and the global interconnectedness, the ethical compass must remain our guiding light. Ethical banking is not utopian. It's not romantic in any way. It is an achievable goal that requires a collective effort from all stakeholders, bank leaderships, employees, regulators, and the wider public. It involves a commitment to regulatory compliance, transparency, responsible lending, among others. The challenge is formidable, but so too are the opportunities. We must look to the opportunities to make this work. Furthermore, for all bankers here who are leaders in our respective banks, there is a charge on us to set the ethical compass within our banks. As leaders, we must lead by example, demonstrating through our actions and decisions that ethical considerations are not an afterthought, but the fundamental part of our decision-making process. Thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to your shared insights and collaborative efforts that would emerge from our discussions today. Together, let us navigate the uncertain times with an unwavering commitment to ethical banking practices. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Sam, for those very actionable nuggets. I will now invite our chairman to give his remarks on the first session before we go into the final plenary session.
Thank you very much once again, Makofa. We've had a very packed morning, which is 30 minutes past midday. So, and we have the second session still to go. So I'll keep my remarks straight to the point. I'll not behave like my friend who took 2 hours of our time. So we started the day with the president introducing the conference. And one key thing that he highlighted was the requirement that we had put before the Bank of Ghana that some rules banking environment should be restricted more or less to chartered bankers. And I think it's a step that we are gradually moving towards, and through the governance, we are moving there. We are not there yet, but we are sure that in the course of time, we'll get there. Then we heard from our keynote speaker, or guest speaker, Mr. Patrick Ewua, who started with a profound quote from Aristotle that excellence is of 2 dimensions, that the intellectual and the moral, and that is not an art, but a habit. So we must be conscious if we want to be, and deliberate if we want to be excellent at what we do. The habit of maintaining high standards must be across the entire spectrum of the organization, from the top to the bottom. And he took us through a few things that he has implemented at Ashesi University on their honor code. He mentioned at one point that there must be a clear objective if you have to achieve the requirements or the objectives of the honor code, and that there must be a strong code of conduct where senior executives or senior managers, flout the rules, the penalty must be stiffer. That is an advice that he gave us. It should be articulated in the right language and should be inspiring. People should aspire in achieving that. He also asked us to model the kind of behavior that we want to see, and also tackle that through the curriculum that we run in our schools and the model of teaching. And again, the anchor of the honor code was basically making students to take ownership. In all this process, particularly on ethics, ownership is at the core of the objective that we are seeking to achieve. So if people own a process, then they know that they are responsible for it and therefore accountable to whatever outcomes that are likely to be seen from that process. So he also asked us to celebrate successes. It's very important. Sometimes we are over focused, and I think Sam also touched on it, that there are a lot of instances that bankers have stood in the way of corruption. They've stood firm and not allowed to be influenced, but we don't celebrate these people that much. And one or two things that come out rather gets highlighted. So we should celebrate success. And Mr. Ewa admonished all of us to take that on board. And he emphasized the educational system should not be about preaching to the students, but must be more engaging, and so that we can have the right learning outcomes. The representative of the governor, Mr. Bernard Utabel, whom I graciously awarded a PhD today, but he decided to decline it. Yeah, he reiterated that our industry, the banking industry, thrives on trust, and breach thereof threatens the stability of the entire financial system. So it's very important that as bankers, we treat the issue of ethics with all the seriousness that it deserves. An ethical framework of banks and the values must drive our conduct in this area. He referred us to the sustainable banking principles, which we are happy to report that we've gone through the entire training program, and therefore the rollout is on board. And he said ethics is at the bedrock of the sustainable banking principles. And advised us that professionalism should not be limited to attainment of educational certificates, but real commitment to the values, self-regulation, and integrity. And asked us to embed in our risk management framework an assessment of the impact of culture on our lending practices, something that Mr. Edu also touched on. He ended by saying that if strong ethical standards are practiced in the banks, if we are aggressive in the practice of ethics, it has the potential of transmitting into society. The customers that we deal with will see how we conduct our business, and they will learn and take ethical practices as part of their day-to-day, values in their businesses and in their households as well. And that is the last point he made, was on the fit and proper test, the fact that ethics certification will be part of the fit and proper test for key management personnel in the banking system. Robert, I won't run through everything that you said, because you told us everything that we needed to know about the certification and the curriculum. So we are happy with all the work that you've done. You went on to give us highlights of the anniversary, the launch of the anniversary, the banking, the real economy webinar, financial literacy program, and the 14th induction and graduation ceremony. Then to the last speaker, Mr. Sam Edu. Yes, his topic is a real one. That's the practical undertones of this ethical. How do we balance the act as bankers? And he gave the clear case of what the scenario is at the moment, where we are coming from a significant dip in performance in 2022 and a potential rush to profitability. And how do we manage the blurring lines between, how we make this profit that banks are disclosing. It is the third quarter. As at the third quarter, the results that we have seen thus far. So he said there's tension between profit motives and ethical consideration, and that the pursuit of profit must be tempered with ethical requirements, and gave us some ethical dilemmas. Ethics goes beyond mere compliance, and that we should see compliance as an opportunity to do the right thing. Profit maximization versus social responsibility, responsible lending practices beyond the bottom line, financial inclusion and bridging the digital gap, and bias and discrimination in our practice as bankers. And give us some from the work that he's done, some stumbling block against how banks can practice this requirement of remaining ethical. The first one, the cost of implementing some of these ethical requirements. The second is customers may not be aware. We may be making certain demands in compliance, but do the customers understand why we are asking what we do? And those are some of the ethical hindrances or bottlenecks that we have in the system. And our culture, you've done the loan, given the loan, you have not demanded anything, you come to the office, there's a watch. Have their gift registered, and in such difficult situations, the gifts are disclosed and they are lodged in compliance. So is the one is said that it is not like a monster to remain ethical, and that is an achievable goal. Just involves compliance and admonish bankers to set the ethical compass so that those who are coming after us follow. We've had very, very good ones, and I'm sure these presentations will be available for us to say for the generality of our membership. Not everybody is here at this stage, and by the powers being invested, I would then see that this first session we'll draw the curtain on the first session. We'll have a short break, and then no break. We'll have a short break, and then we'll come for the plenary session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman, for those closing remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now at the pinnacle of our conference today, and we will have a final plenary session, which will be moderated by our own senior, Mr. Clifford Metal, Fellow of the CIB, and his seasoned panelists. They will be discussing the topic, embedding ethics in banking and society, giving voice to values. Our discussants are Mrs. Ellen Afokwa of Absa Bank, Mr. Bernard Otabil of Bank of Ghana, Mrs. Rebecca Ewa of Ashesi University, and Professor Noel Tego, CEO of Sandhills Advisory Services. Ladies and gentlemen, you're invited to take the podium.
So we are level 400 and we are left just one paper to complete the best. For this particular subject that's very difficult, people are struggling to pass. When we reach to the examination, you get hint that there's a past question that the lecturer is selling that you may have to buy before you can pass. Otherwise, you get an A, which should push you to first class. What are you going to do? Honestly, if I can afford it, I'm going to pay for it because you know what they say, work smarter, not harder. Yeah, thank you. So now this paper that people are struggling to pass, including yourself. You went it the first time you failed, second time you failed. And then the third opportunity to write the state paper. Just before the examination, it's a week of paper. People are just rushing. Oh my God. We are still in the fight. If this opportunity comes, believe me, I'll take advantage of it. Because basically most of us examination. So if this opportunity presents itself, it's almost a prayer. I'll definitely utilize it. Thank you. So your data is not feeling too well. We are the bank teller. We went to the office that day and we have been told that we need about 10,000 cedis to pay for the bills for the doctor. Who's at the hospital at the time we are at the bank. That morning, a customer comes in, a very rich customer of the branch comes in, I think that he wants to deposit 50,000 cedis. He gives you 50,000. And once you're counting, the customer is gone. Once you're counting, you realize that the amount was 60,000 instead of 50,000. An additional 10,000, which matches the medical bills that you have to be paying for your daughter. What are you going to do?
This is a very dicey one, but as much as I know, ethics is very important. If you were that person and then you got to know that, the person knows the amount of money say, and then he comes and sees that the money is not up to, if it was me, would I be happy? So I would actually return it, no matter the situation. I know there's always a way out. So there would definitely be a way out for me to pay for my daughter's gift. So I would go the ethical way.
Thank you very much. So we hear of politicians being corrupt in this country. Everywhere you pass, you interview people, they say our politicians are very corrupt. Let's assume you want to be a member of parliament of your area. You have little funds and you make, your campaign banners and all of that. Now you go to the community that you want to be the member of parliament for, and the people are telling you that, hey, future MP, if you don't give us money, we're not going to vote for you. If you don't buy us this, we're not going to vote for you. As an MP, what are you going to do?
All right. So I've seen one of the most disturbing issues in our nation is how people try to influence people to vote for them, and at the end of the day, don't serve the country. So coming up as an MP, and I think basically we have to stand firm because if you know service is what you do for the people, not what they will eat today. So it's a matter of how you convince them, know that you came to serve them in all the ways they want to be and in a better way within the community.
Given food today, tomorrow, if I gain the power, I will not think about serving them, but gaining the amount of money I placed during the campaign. So it has vitally led to actually ask for food, but people should look for leaders who would serve them based on their interests, not what they want.
Thank you very much. I think this is a very good note on which we can start our discussion from various facets of society and how they think about ethics. Thank you very much, CIB, for the opportunity to moderate this all-important discussion. Let me say that we will try and make it as short as we could. We are lucky the previous speakers have done a lot of work for us already. So for each panel member, I will try to restrict them to 3 minutes for each of the questions that I pose to them so that we can get it quickly done and give you the opportunity to also ask some few questions before we leave. All right. So let me say that I'm a very lucky person because I have a star-studded panelist. The panel is made up of Mrs. Ellen Afokwa, She's a chartered banker and the managing director, principal for corporate and investment banking at Absa Bank, Ghana. A lot of applause. Then I also have the Professor Timbu, who is a public intellectual in technology and a finance and ethics expert. Prof. I'm also lucky to have Madam Rebecca Enya, who is a senior lecturer at Ascension University and an ethics expert. And last but not the least, the person who stood in for the governor is now my panelist, Mr. Bernard Otabil, who is the director, Office of Ethics and Internal Investigation, Bank of Ghana. So it's a very star-studded panel. My name is Clifford Metal. I think first of all, I'll just go around the table very quickly, but this is only for 1 minute, just to find out your understanding of the topic. The topic is embedding ethics in banking and society, giving voice to values. So, Ellen, you are closer to me, so what do you think about the topic?
Thank you very much, Mr. Metal, and thanks for the opportunity. In the face of the current global economic challenges, the geopolitics, the trade tensions, and also bank failures, ethics has become a topical issue, both in business and in society, and the banking industry is no exception. So for me, ethics is the cornerstone of trust, and trust and integrity is the currency of banking that sustains banking. And we've heard a lot about trust this morning. So it is therefore not surprising that Chartered Institute of Bankers have their slogan or motto as honesty and integrity. And it's fully embodied in the cloth that I'm wearing, honesty and integrity, which is so key. The banking industry is the bedrock of the society and the economy, and it supports the growth of all sectors. And therefore, there are dire consequences, such as job loss, destabilization of the economy, economic contraction, if ethical values are not upheld. Embedding ethics is key for the growth of the economy, the society, and the planet. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll take the thoughts of Bernard and then we'll move on to Prof. And Rebecca will give us the last talk. Bernard.
Hello. Am I heard? Right. So thank you, Clifford. Let me say that at this point, I'm standing in my own shoes. So all mistakes made are mine. So don't make any attribution that get me dismissed for making wrong comments on behalf of the family. That is standing in my own shoes. Yes, I mean that is very important for various reasons. As Akufa rightly pointed out, in banking, it is not the notes and coins you have in circulation. That is actually a stock in trade. Stock in trade is actually what? Trust. And it's mainly on the basis of the fact that in the space, in the industry in which we are, we need both economic and social capital. Now, that social license that we have, that enables us to play that financial intermediation role very well, is hinged on trust. Once that trust is broken, then obviously you are going to have a very deep problem. I'll give you a typical example, one of it. I mean, you all know the run on the rock. The run on the rock is a very notable case study involving Northern Rock. And what actually happened, it was a trust issue where people had realized that, look, the insolvency situation has now become the liquidity situation has become a solvency issue. Everyone going to the bank to claim their money at the same time caused that problem. Now, no bank in the world will be able to pay all depositors should they go to the bank at the same time. Hence, you have your cash reserve ratios and so on and so forth. Your vote cash planning does not take into consideration the fact that you should not have all our depositors coming at the same time. And it's all the case because you have what trust. The trust that you would give us the money on demand when we give you our deposits. But we also expect that the economic efficiency role that the banks play is hinged on a contract that is built on trust. So everything in banking is pure on the basis of trust.
Okay, Bernard, I'll come back to you again. So if you can last.
So I defer to Prof.
Thank you. All right, Prof. Just a brief.
So I agree with everything that has been said. With trust, with ethics, you have trust. And my fundamental statement is that business moves at the pace of trust. Without trust, business doesn't move because you have to do due diligence, etc. You waste a lot of money trying to assure people of trust. If we just do what is ethical, then we have trust, and it gives us a huge brand equity. The point I want to land on really is the fact that trust should not be the burden only of the individual. Organizations should reinforce trust, and then society should reinforce trust. Otherwise, you get the individual swimming against the tide. And if somebody has to think about their family and we lose, if the person engages in ethical behavior and we lose because of that, the person will choose their family survival first. And that is why we need society and laws reinforcing ethical behavior. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. The perspective that I would bring to this discussion is ethics education. And how do we effectively support students and professionals to improve their skills in ethical awareness, so recognizing the ethical dimensions of the conflicts and challenges that they face, in ethical analysis, how to analyze the situation using different frameworks of ethical reasoning, and importantly, come to a decision about what is right and wrong in a particular situation. Ethical awareness and ethical analysis we often teach in our professional ethics courses, in our professional development, compliance training, and so forth. But there's a third element of ethics education that is really important, and that is helping students and professionals develop skills in ethical action. Once you've come to a decision about what you believe is right and wrong in a particular instance, who are you going to talk to about it? What are you going to say? How are you going to formulate a persuasive argument in service of what you believe is right? How can you be strategic in thinking about the risks of speaking up and taking action and try to mitigate those risks? Those are all a skill set under the umbrella of giving voice to values. When we voice our values, that's a metaphor for taking action in service of what we believe is right. So it's that third component when we think holistically about ethics education that I think is so important. In many of the instances where someone observed something that they knew they believed wasn't right, they chose not to speak up and take action. And there's different reasons for that, but one reason is because they may not have felt that they could be effective. They didn't feel that they had the skills to intervene and strategically take steps to remedy the situation. So that giving voice to values part is what I hope to bring to this discussion this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe I'll stay with you, Rebecca. What exactly do we mean when we say we are giving voice to values? What exactly do we mean?
As I mentioned, the three components of ethics education are the ethical awareness, the ethical analysis, and the ethical action. So let me talk a little bit more about the ethical action piece, which is what giving voice to values is really referring to. And I'll connect it to the honor code at FCIB. And say a little bit more about how we go about supporting students to uphold the honor code. back in 2007, when students were having a set of ongoing discussions and conversations about whether or not they should adopt an honor system at Ashesi, a continuing concern that was expressed in many of these dialogues was that students felt they could hold themselves accountable. They felt confident that if I go into the exam room, I can do the right thing. They also felt that some of their colleagues would not do the right thing, and they weren't sure they would be able to report or hold those other students accountable. So it was this piece of taking action that they feared would be the most difficult, and I think that that's true. Soon after students adopted the honor system, I had an opportunity to attend an ethics in higher education conference where Dr. Mary Gentile, who's developed the Giving Voice to Values curriculum, spoke about her work and about the research behind it. And this idea that one of the most effective ways to help people in those sorts of situations develop the competencies and confidence to take action is through rehearsal. We are more likely to say what we have practiced saying. We are more likely to do what we have thought about and what we have done before. So all students at Ashesi during their first year take a course called Giving Voice to Values. It's a set of cases, and in each case, they're all based on real scenarios and real situations that have occurred either with our students on campus or in their internships or something of that sort. So the protagonist in the case has experienced a values conflict. You read about how they came to a decision point about what they believe is right, and they want to take action. The case ends. Students then are tasked with developing an action plan for that person in the case, for coming up with a script, and then role-playing, rehearsing, voicing what they could say and do in that situation. So situations of academic integrity, situations of someone cheating in an exam, situations of going into an internship and observing something or being asked to do something that you feel is not right. Work with your colleagues, develop a script, formulate an action plan, and then voice it by role-playing. So that's the voice piece. Okay, so just not to take too much time, but I think that what we have learned over the last 12 years that we have implemented Giving Voice to Values at Ashesi is that it actually really does support the honor code. So students can practice formulating an argument or a counter-argument, what they might say in that situation, so that when it comes up, they can give it a try. They might falter the first time, but the other aspect of an honor code is that it does provide the opportunity to practice and improve on those skills and ethical actions. So it's a learning tool in addition to a way that can help us guide our behavior on campus.
Right.
So that's a little bit about it.
Thank you very much. Let me shift to Ellen. Ellen, you are a practitioner. You are deeply in the sector, the banking sector. Now, can you share with us the professional's perspective of ethics? Probably, if it's possible, out of the APSA.
Thank you very much. As bankers, we are entrusted with the financial well-being of individuals, businesses, the economy, and the planet. So for us, ethics is the principles, that governs the principles, the ideals, and the conduct that governs how we interact with our customers, our colleagues, the regulator, our communities, then also the economy as a whole. For us in banking, ethics is so key for what we do. Ethics, must say, gives us the license to do business. And for us in APSA, we have put in place structures that really help us to embed ethics into whatever we do. And I'll take you through maybe a few of them, maybe 5 of them. One is employee training. Employee training cuts across from the managing director all the way to the entry-level staff. You need to go through ethics training, and this is a regular ethics training. And it's to surprise you to know that if you don't really pass the ethics training, you even get a bonus. That's how serious ethics is taken in ABSA, and also we're encouraging all the banks to really take ethics to that level. Even though you need to put in a little bit more money, but it's important we equip our colleagues to know exactly what to expect and also how to serve clients ethically. Because there's nothing like you doing a great deal and at the end of the day being fined. You need to know the right questions to ask when you're onboarding clients. That's if you have the right training and the right exposure. Financial literacy is also very key. We need to educate our clients to know exactly what ethics means so that they can ask informed questions. And I'm happy that the Chartered Institute of Bankers have started something on ethics. Then transparency. We need to build a culture of transparency and accountability. It's so key. We need to ensure that as bankers, we are telling our clients what the product entails, what are the charges, and at the end of the day, what is expected of them. We shouldn't hide anything from our clients when we are really selling products or solutions to them, which I think is very important. And for us to embed ethics, I think it's important that we really look at how we use regulation to help us embed ethics. And I'm sure you all know about how Bernard, your team, when the Bank of Ghana became straight on sanctioning staffs who are engaged in fraudulent activities, we've seen a reduction of bank staff engaged in fraudulent activities from 278 in 2021 to 188 in 2022. So I think regulations and compliance is key. We need to ensure that we are really complying with the banking laws and regulations. Then the third one for me is about the whistleblower protection. We need to ensure that we protect our whistleblowers so that we don't condone wrongdoing. We need to look out for wrongdoing and make sure that we report wrongdoing, which I think is also very important. Then customer-centric approach to ethics. Are you protecting your customers' data? How are we ensuring that our customers' information is being protected? If we are customer-centric, when designing our products and solutions, we have the customer at the center of it, and we'll be transparent to the customer and ensure that whatever solutions we deliver as banks really benefit the customer, the society, and the planet as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a very wonderful exposition. Now, before I come to Prof. Table, I would want to go to Bernard. I think this morning, much ink has been spilled on statistics of ethics. We are seeing statistics on the various frauds in the bank, how it has gone up, how it's coming down. Now, the only statistics I want to read will be just to buttress, I think, what Sam said on the issue of ethics and profitability. Now, according to 2021 survey by the Pew Research Center, 72% of Americans believe strongly that business leaders will generally put profit ahead of ethics. As for the business banking survey, I'm sure you have that already better. So what I want to know is that from the central bank's perspective, what exactly would you see, or from what you see, would be the various directions and understanding of ethics as it is in Ghana and in the banking industry in particular right now? What will be your understanding of the what are the direction?
That's a very good one. Taking me down the Pew Research and all of that. But the same Pew Research in one of it also stated that when it comes to the when they put professions up, banking profession came in terms of trusted professions. Now, one simple answer to what you stated earlier is it's a one-line, and I'll put it this way. In a world where everything is reduced to commodity status, don't be surprised that everything will be given a price. So then you have trust issues being taken out of the window, and everything is now built on what really brings in the most. So the essence of profit maximization, yes, would always dominate shareholder value assessment, because at the end of the day, it's what about value realization and value preservation. But that's not where the focus really is. From the central bank point of view and globally, you can see that realizing that this whole share value maximization, preservation, and so on and so forth has brought under the whole essence of ethics and honest business play. You have the ESG. Now they say look at other considerations. Some may call it the stakeholder approach. The environmental social matter, and that brings in the element of sustainability, that the practices of today must not compromise the future generation in any state or form. So look at the governance, look at the social issues, and so on and so forth. Let's bring it home. At the central bank level, I mean, from where we sit, we cannot speak directly to some of the performers within the industry space. I'm sure there are a lot of people that can speak directly to that. We just come out with the data, which is based on monitored situations in the industry. So that is the data that we've given, and we base assessment on that. But we don't treat ethics the same as fraud. Let's not get confused on those issues. Okay, we don't think ethics or ethical issues are aspects of aspiration that you expect people to get out there. But in ethics, we also say the law is the minimum consideration. So some of the fraudulent activities that we actually bother some criminality, and therefore you may have to look deeper into that than using administrative processes to just address that. So that is also another part of the equation. Here at Central Bank, and I like what you came up with. You are 12 years old in that regard, and I'm looking at the giving voice to value. This year, we also adopted the Mary Gentilis, Professor Mary Gentilis, giving voice to value. And we had an ethics week, and the theme for the ethics week was giving voice to values, speak up, listen up, where we linked it to the whistleblower that you actually mentioned. At Bank of Ghana, we have a whistleblower policy and a non-retaliation policy to protect those who actually blow the whistle. But we believe that when we speak giving voice to values, there are 7 pillars, from purpose, from choice, rationalization, normalization, reasoning, and so on and so forth. You are likely not to get to the stage of getting into whistleblower, because then the behavior should have achieved a certain path. All I'm speaking to you about is what we introduced from 2018 following the banking sector crisis, banking sector cleanup exercise that we did. Various directives were issued to industry, and we noticed during that period that conduct at the boardroom level, bad conduct had actually resulted in very poor governance, and that had resulted in the loss of franchise values of the dormant institutions that we actually, insolvent dormant institutions we actually had to resolve. But we cannot just issue directives to industry without looking within also. So for us, as regulators, as the governor pointed out, higher standards were demanded of us. So we set up an ethics office to give direction and focus, give us a line of sight in terms of what is expected of the behavior of staff of the Bank of Ghana. The starting point was just developing an ethics code. And as Mr. Hua rightly pointed out, it is only words if it is not implemented. So it's an ethics and internal investigations office, and we investigate issues of infractions that are actually reported to us as well. So we looked at the various aspects of it, and as I said, within the banking industry, it's what we can speak to directly are the fraud report and various issues that we really do come up, and I'm sure there will be other questions to direction that we deal with. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you for that. Now, I'll go to Professor Loyatingu. Prof, I'm sure you'll be able to take us through some form of the underpinning ethical reasons for the domestic debt exchange program in particular. If you can just take us through briefly, or if there are some other views that you want to express
it will be welcome. Okay, thanks very much. And again, I speak to the issue of ethical analysis of something that we all experienced. I believe many people were not even aware that there were ethical dimensions to it, but I'll skip that and come to ethical dimensions. I'll just make four very brief comments. We all know DDUP, and so the ethical lenses I'm looking at through is, first of all, integrity. And the aspect of integrity I'm looking at is promise keeping. So government borrowed money, and it says, I promise I'll pay you at this coupon rate at this particular point in time. Somehow, government is unable to do that, and therefore government has broken a promise. That is an ethical breach. We can call it nothing else but an ethical breach in terms of that. Now, these things can happen, and so government and those involved should take steps to minimize the negative impact of that ethical breach. Because once that happens, then what it does is it destroys confidence in the system. Trust is broken, and when trust is broken, it is very difficult to rebuild. Now, if you look at the bank's financial statement, banks are very high on liquidity at the moment, partly because people are seeing just bank deposit as the safest place to put their money at the moment. They are not putting their money elsewhere. And as a financial advisor, the question that I keep getting from people is, what should I do even with treasury bills and things like that? So integrity is for that. The second thing is how the issues were carried out. And I like to look at them through the lenses of what I call procedural justice. So it's how transparent and how fair were the decision process, and that didn't result in an abuse of power, for example. So there were all manner of people who were consulted, and various degrees of consultation. And the question to ask is, to what extent did their voices matter. And when you talk about procedural justice, there are forming plans. And I just mentioned them and leave it to your judgment, probably imagination as to how we did on that. Number one is the dignity and respect for the people involved who will be affected by the outcomes of the decision. So did we treat them with respect and with dignity? I ask as a question. I make no judgment. The second is giving people voice. They have to be able to participate in the decision process that will land them somewhere. Somehow, banks and boards and others took part in some of the conversation. But did others have vetoes and others have voices? And when you come to this, you're talking about voices, not vetoes, so that people's voices are heard. The other thing is about neutrality. So decision makers are neutral, they can be trusted, there's no bias inherent in the process to skew a decision to a particular end. If we do that, I leave you to have that. And then the final one is the trustworthiness of the motives of the decision makers. And again, as we look at in terms of the process of arriving at what the haircut should be, etc., was the decision makers, and were the motives trustworthy. I leave that an issue of judgment. The third one I want to quickly land on is what I'll call distributive justice, which is quite different from procedural justice. Distributive justice is how you share the benefits and burdens of social cooperation. You cooperate socially, there are benefits and burdens. In particular, when it comes to the burdens, a key thing is the carrying capacity of the person on which you are placing the burden. Can the person bear that particular burden? And if the person cannot, what do you do in terms of that? I give you an example in Ghana. Several years ago, we had economic policy, ERP, Economic Recovery Program, Structural Adjustment Program. We realized that the burden would fall disproportionately on some people who couldn't carry it. And so there was a mitigating program called PAMSCA, Program of Adjustment for the mitigation of the social forms of adjustment to mitigate that. And then, so I ask those who bore the brunt of the DDEP, was it fair? Was it distributively just in terms of that? My final point then is what I call the reason that was given. In technical ethical terms, the reasoning is in the area of utilitarianism. Work have been done by people like Cyril Bentham and others in that area. And utilitarianism just says that we will choose a course of action that would ensure that you get the greatest good out of it in terms of the burden. If you like, I just think about what Caiaphas said about Israel at the time of Jesus. It's better for one man to die than for all the nation to die. That's a classic utilitarian. Now what he's saying, so what our policymakers are then saying is that we embark on DDE because if we didn't embark on DDE, the suffering that we would obtain would be greater than the suffering that obtained in DDE. Now, one of the ethical principles we have to adopt is accountability. So when people have said that's the reason behind that, then we should at least be in a position to demand accountability from them to demonstrate. Now we know where the impact landed. Was that the best decision to have made? Did it achieve greater good than greater pain in terms of that? And I say this not from a retrospective background because DDEP has come involved. What we need is we know similar policies where the burdens and benefits of economic cooperation within Ghana will take place. And what we have to do is to define the ethical compass by which these things will be done to promote integrity, procedural justice, distributive justice, but also to ensure that it lands and adheres to the greater good. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. That was a very good exposition, and I'm sure we would have carried some nuggets from whatever happened as far as the DDEP is concerned. Let me go to Rebecca probably for the last slide. Rebecca, when I see these people here, I'm just thinking, if we decide to just set a right exam, how are they going to pay? If some of them have some materials, and these are diamonds, So I was just thinking, how can we even conduct an exam, without an instructor? Because I know and I'm aware that even at the training center, when they want to conduct exam, without an instructor, they cheat, So what can we do? The practical way that this invigilatorless exam is conducted in a session.
First of all, I bet most people would be able to tell right from wrong in that situation. People would know what was the right thing to do and what was the wrong thing to do. And then it's a matter of choice. So are you going to choose to do the right thing, or are you going to choose to do the wrong thing? And in addition to that, if you observe someone doing the wrong thing, are you going to make the choice to speak up and take action to benefit the collective trust and integrity of your institution? So how do we make it happen? I think our experience at HSC shows that it's an ongoing process. It's not an honor code by itself. There are many other components to it. Taking ownership is an important one. So the extent to which those folks who are taking the exam have a sense of ownership of the mission and vision of the credential that they are attempting to achieve. recognizing that those ethical dilemmas occur regularly and are difficult situations for people, and then providing the professional development, the opportunities to delve into and engage with these issues, and then the ethical action piece, I think, is really important. Like, to what extent have people thought about what they might say and do, and even practiced or rehearsed what they might say and do in those ethically challenging situations before they occur. So I guess my perspective would be to look at the ethics curriculum for the Chartered Institute of Bankers. I'm fairly certain that there's a strong ethical awareness piece for this industry. I'm fairly certain that there's different frameworks and guidelines to help people analyze what's right and wrong in given situations. But to what extent does that curriculum support the action piece, the rehearsal, and the ability for people to feel that they can competently and confidently speak up when their values are in conflict with what they've been asked to do?
Thank you very much. Helen, let me come to you for the last time. I want us to have some time for the audience to also give us, the participants to give us either feedback or questions. So just in a nutshell, what would you say will be your definition of success for a panel discussion like this?
Thank you very much. For me, how we measure success is how we recognize ethical banking as a journey and not a destination. And I'm excited about the topic that we've chosen and the journey we want to embark on as Chartered Institute of Bankers. For me, it will need our personal integrity for us to be able to really embed ethics into the banking industry and ensure that we don't get to where we were in 2017, where we had 5 banks merged and 98 branches closed. So our personal integrity on this journey is very important. Then also, as entrusted with the financial well-being of the individual, businesses, and the economy and the planet, it's important that we always are abreast about what is happening in our environment. We need to educate and also make sure that not only our staff, but the whole population. Financial literacy is very key. Then also we also need to ensure that whatever we discuss, we embed it in our daily practice. If a customer comes to you and wants to open an account, are we asking the right questions? Are we asking for the right licenses before we open accounts for them? Are we ensuring that we are taking our clients along the journey? ESG is very key. And there are some some companies that if they want to do business with you, they want to see your ESG strategy before they do business with you. Are we embedding the sustainable banking practices? Are we asking the right questions? And I think it's important. And with this discussion, we'll go back and ensure that as stewards of financial institutions, we ensure that we embed these things that we've discussed and ensure that we build a prosperous economy, country, and the planet that we all be proud of.
Thank you very much. Probably the last question to you is, so what can we do to ensure that 3 stakeholders, the customers, then shareholders, and then probably the economy as a whole benefits from such guidelines that we have come up here?
Thank you. For any ethics program to be successful, we have to see the right set at the top. So for me, if you want to use any proxy to judge the success of this program, it must be to see all our business leaders setting the right tone at the top. When the tone at the top is quite emphatic and straight up on ethical issues, then it has to be supported by very strong in the middle. Then you are likely to have very good behavior at the base, which is those at the level. So that's what you want to see. But on the issue of the exam that you brought up.
1963, A year of significance. A handful of visionary Ghanaian chartered bankers returned from their studies in the United Kingdom. They started as a close-knit group reminiscing about their UK journeys and sharing work experiences. But this was not just about memories. The ambition grew. And they started organizing preparatory classes in Accra for upcoming bankers with an unquenchable thirst for growth. In 1963, they formalized their tie with the Institute of Bankers, England and Wales. The pioneer leaders, Mr. C.P. Johnson, Mr. J.H. Ellis, and later Mr. J.S. Addo, under their leadership, the institute found its roots and flourished. But they faced challenges. Balancing rigorous banking education with work wasn't easy, yet their determination was unwavering. Over the years, the institute's presence was undeniable. Their annual Bankers' Dinner became landmarks, platforms for central bank governors to share visions for the year ahead. From the first executive secretary, Mr. Kofi Atta-Bronya, to the chief executives, the journey has been nothing short of inspiring. 1978, a significant year. The institute took a giant leap and registered under Professional Bodies Decree of 1973. That same year, localizing examinations became a reality. Despite challenges, the institute persevered. From power outages during exams to relocation, they faced it all. 2016 saw a remarkable change. Bishop Mrs. Patricia Sapo was elected the first female president, leading the institute to even greater heights. Finally, 2019, the Chartered Institute of Bankers Act was assented, marking another major milestone. Through decades of passion, perseverance, and unwavering commitment, the Chartered Institute of Bankers, Ghana, stands tall today, honoring the past, celebrating the present, and looking forward to an even brighter future.
History is said to be the record of very important events that have taken place in the past. You've heard about our journey to 60. It's been full of sacrifices, but of course achievements. And we've been very consistent, putting ethics and professionalism at the heart and core of what we do. We are even more excited about the future. The next 60 years will be very defining. For us, that means being the talent engine and thought leaders for the industry, supporting the banking sector and the entire financial services ecosystem in this country and beyond. We're calling on all of you, our key stakeholders, to walk this journey with us into the future.